Hi, this is Ken Adams, and welcome to this edition of City Beat. And I'm joined this week by Mayor Chuck Bennett. And Chuck, we've had a lot going on here in the city.
It's been busy.
And one of the things that kind of caught my attention was the homeless situation.
Yeah.
It's been talked about between Polk and Marion County, the city of Salem and
Right.
Salem Kaiser. And so, but you've got kind of a homeless plan in development now?
Yeah, in fact, I announced it at the State of the City address I gave back in March, something like that. And it's a plan that's now been funded by the city in the city budget, and we're targeting what are referred to as the hard to house. And these are folks who have very specific issues. They have health issues, and these all have to be, you have to have all of these to be picked up in this program. They have health issues, addiction issues, and mental health issues, all three at once. And then about half of the folks we're looking at also have felony convictions. They're very, very difficult to house. They're the men and women you'll often see on the street that when I'm contacted about the homeless, that's who people are most commonly contacting me about, is what's being done for these people. They're sleeping in doorways, sleeping on the sidewalk, in many cases sleeping in the park or in someone's yard. You may not be aware of it, but they're there. And we're trying now to really work with that group, in part because no other agency has been working with them. They're just very difficult to get into housing, and they take wraparound social services to keep them in housing and assist them. They're also may have no income whatsoever, or we have determined now, we have a lot of statistics that have been done by Jimmy Jones over at the Community Action Agency running the Arches program. He's done a very in-depth look at this group of folks here in town, and we now know who they are individually, who is the hardest housed person in Salem, and we've begun working with that person to get them into housing. And then there's the second hardest to house. We're working with that person. And this is a group that really hasn't been addressed by the community organizations that work on homeless issues. They have been working really with a different population of people. So we're doing it in conjunction with our housing authority. The city itself, out of its general fund, is putting up money for some transition housing. Housing Authority is putting in about 100 vouchers for Section 8 type housing, supported housing. And then we're working with our social service agencies and community-based organizations here in town to assist them with health, mental health, and addiction issues so that they can successfully move into a room or a house or an apartment and begin to have a more successful life, and certainly not one as difficult as they're facing right now. Nothing could be more difficult than sleeping in a doorway or in the mud.
Open. It ages you pretty quickly.
Well, they're living rough.
Yeah.
Their average age, too, is fairly high. We're looking at folks, average ages are running in excess of 50 years old. This is an older group. We have veterans in this group. We have programs for them that we will be targeting to assist them. But this is the group also, I think, when we hear about homelessness, aside from panhandling, which is a very, very small percentage of the homeless are panhandlers. We're talking less than 1% are really involved in that activity.
But those are the ones that get noticed.
They get noticed, and there isn't a lot can be done. If someone's holding a sign, they have a right to hold a sign. What they don't have a right to do is run into traffic and collect money. But really, what we're working on is the group that people, when you walk around town early in the morning, there's folks just sleeping all over the place, in the parks, that kind of thing. We're really going to work with.
Well,
that
I've seen
group.
a couple of people down at like where Shyrock's used to be.
Yeah.
And also, what about for couples? Because that's also an issue, because I know that we lost a lot of our facilities that could house couples.
Yeah, and that group, if they fit into that hard to house group, we will be assisting them. If one or the other of them fall into that particular category, we'll be working with them. We're expecting the other organizations that deal with housing for these, and there are a number of other programs out there. I mean, homelessness is a very complicated issue involving several thousand people, a couple thousand people here in Salem, with different degrees of need, different kinds of living situations. They may or may not have pets. There's a whole batch of issues that come into play, and we have a number of organizations here in town that work with those different groups. So we're trying to fill the need where there is no one helping them. There just is no one helping them. And that represents around 800 men and women here in town.
And there's Delana Beaton is working on a project of her own.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying. It's basically a demonstration project where they build like small shelters and have them. I think 20 units or something like that. You know, that
I've heard about them doing it. I've talked with Delana about it. I think they have some difficulties in that they have to find a place for the community, where to locate it. I know they came to the city at one point asking if we had location for them. We don't. We don't own property that would house this. So they're working on that project. I'm aware of it. It'll have, it needs water, power, sewer, or at some sort of solid waste disposal system. There's a number of challenges to it. Our approach is housing first, and we're going to be using existing housing and not putting people in tents or tiny houses or any of that.
Well, I know that like in my neighborhood, there's I think it's about a 10 or 12 unit large house, you know.
The old sorority house.
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. When I
on
was in
Court
college,
Street.
it was the Delta Gamma house.
Oh,
actually.
okay. But currently it's up for sale, I believe.
Yes.
And see, that would be something I think would be easily made into affordable housing. See, I think one of the problems that we have is that, like, and I'm thinking back to my youth, where a lot of times we had these single resident hotels
Yeah.
downtown.
And we lost those here.
They're all gone.
Yeah.
So, you know, people that are kind of low on funds don't have that option really anymore. There's nothing here in Salem that I'm aware of that
Well,
would
we
fit
do
that.
have housing for low-income elderly. The Robert Lindsay Tower, the recently really beautifully redone Capitol Plaza over on 12th and Chemeketa is for low-income, often medically somewhat fragile elderly, and that has been redone just beautifully by a public-private program. Certainly the Delta Gamma House might be one, or that's how I think. It's no longer obviously a sorority, but has been used by students over the years. We'll have a number of students move in there, and I'm aware it's up for sale. It's not one that has come to the Housing Authority yet that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think there was a problem with a roof leak. And
Well, it's got mold, it's got
Yeah.
roof leak, it's got some issues that
Right.
would have to be addressed. It will have, if there is a purchaser and that decides to use it as a kind of rooming house or some sort of, there's going to be some serious investment required, and certainly we'll be watching, and if approached, I'm sure we'll be talking with anyone interested in doing that.
Well, another kind of related issue is the accessory dwelling
Yeah,
issue.
that's dealing with a kind of different problem.
No, but it's kind of related, because if some of those can be into the housing stock, so to speak.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
But that issue is being addressed based on our requirements to have available an additional 200 acres of multifamily housing development opportunities, and we're addressing that in part with accessory dwelling units. The other thing it will do is provide the kind of studio or small apartment to address a general housing shortage, and a housing shortage in affordable housing. So it'll play a role in that, I think, as they develop. And that's been approved by council in the past week after, gosh, it seems like I brought it up during the housing needs analysis that we needed to get to work on that. And it's been about a year and a half, 2 years ago that I brought it onto the table. Finally got to the city council after a full year of review by neighborhood groups, the planning commission, now the city council, and it will go online. And a real opportunity. I think it will be heavily used closer in neighborhoods, which is good.
Yes.
There will be hopefully nearby grocery store, nearby transit stop, things like that. And we're making them, we hope, as easy as possible for people to develop. There are certain limitations in terms of there's a small setback that is like any other dwelling unit. It can only be so many feet tall. There are some other things. It can only cover a certain amount of the property where they're put in place. Generally, they'll probably be done by homeowners who are, we think, offering a dwelling unit for an older family member who needs a place to live, but needs also to have support from their family nearby, or a young person coming home to stay rather than in the basement, maybe staying above the garage or something, or in a small unit in the backyard.
Yeah, well, most of these basements leak.
Yeah, that would not be my first choice.
Yes. So that's going forward, and when do you think that policy, can people start now, or is there a...
They could, I think we put an emergency clause on it, so it becomes available very quickly. If you're interested in looking at this program and adding a small dwelling unit, additional dwelling unit by converting a garage or adding another building on your property, they should contact our planning department down at City Hall, and they'll take you through the requirements. They're not particularly onerous. The estimate, though, for the cost of building one of these, we had the other night, this is the number I remember, somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000. These are not cheap to locate these things.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Well, housing is expensive right now. Yeah. Construction costs have gone up substantially on a per square footage basis here. And there's tremendous demand here for the use of construction. People,
There's a lot of people moving into Salem from outside the area, Portland, from California.
Yeah.
And so
and we have a growing population, a lot of kids coming out of high school and college that are coming home, living here in Salem. So there's a substantial growth going on here. And we have affordable housing compared to
Portland, yes.
And we're not, when you look at it, we're not that far from Portland, given the way I-5 operates in the morning and in the evening. More and more people who work here in Salem and have commuted from Portland are starting to look seriously at moving down here rather than going through the commute.
And you could commute via the train or the bus.
You can do the train, the bus, and you can drive.
Yeah. And that situation, though, drives the price of homes up.
Yeah.
And I would imagine also builders
are busy,
so that the wages go up because they need to get good quality people in.
Yeah.
So they should contact the planning department?
That's who I would contact, is contact the city's planning department.
So there was a strategic plan and it was
Effort underway.
effort underway. But it was kind of almost like an open house where people came in and talked about
That was part of it, yeah.
where they could say what they felt like was important. So what were the big ones on that?
The big ones were build a third bridge and build it now was one. And the other big one was don't build a third bridge and don't ever build it. And a strong suggestion that we look at our general approach to environment and climate related issues. And then just a whole batch of other issues that come up. Growth, sort of planning for growth, our downtown and our other commercial areas, how they're developing, just, you know, our transportation system, how it's developing, and what kind of transportation system do we expect to be working on over the next 5 to 10 years? What all will we be doing with that system?
Well, it'd be helpful if we had buses running on Saturday and Sunday, for starters.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And if we could run it, we'd probably have them running. But a transit board runs it, and they've been unable to operate it. But there is a transportation bill in front of the state legislature that'll probably be acted on in the next few days. And built into that is a payroll tax on employees statewide that would then be distributed to these various transit districts. And it includes, apparently, as I understand it, enough money that it would really assist the transit board in taking care of weekend and probably evening service. So there's hope on the horizon there.
Well, that would be good, because I know when I was working before I retired that I couldn't get to work without walking most of the distance myself, either to
Yeah.
the bus stop or from the bus stop to where I was working.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll address some of those distances to bus stops are pretty serious distances, and particularly for older folks, which is one of the other issues we're talking about, is making Salem an age-friendly city, one where you and I can grow old with comfort and not have to have our neighbors worry about us hopping into a car and driving and be able to catch buses. We have added Uber and Lyft services, those ride-sharing services, to augment the taxi service here in town, so that we're trying to make sure there are as many alternatives as possible to the automobile, the single-passenger automobile, as people want to use it, whether it's a bicycle. We're working on sidewalks, I don't think fast enough because there just isn't enough money, but we'll be talking about that, I think, in future bond measures. As we look at streets, we also need to look at sidewalks in the city and making sure that we have them where they should be, and that where they are, they're in repair to the point that you're safe to walk on them.
Well, I can testify that my neighborhood, that's
so
a problem.
So can I. Yeah, you and I both live in the inner city neighborhoods, and we know what the condition of some of our sidewalks are like. And there's some trade-offs there. A part of the problem is aging street trees and root systems that are buckling sidewalks. And there's going to be, we really need to make sure we have a very comprehensive strategy. And one of them has got to be, how do we save every street tree we can? That's part of the charm of our neighborhoods. I have a house I lived in over on Church Street that had a couple of sweet gums, and I was one of the first to lose two what I thought were gorgeous trees. They have their issues. Sweet gums have tremendous
Well, especially
issues.
when we're talking about sidewalks.
And they were the wrong tree in the wrong place, and they were allowed to grow for 50, 60 years, so they were really quite beautiful. But they came out, and I was really pretty shocked by it when it happened. Had 7 days notice, and out came the trees. So we have a lot of work to do to make sure that this is done right.
And if people want street trees, they can request them, and they'll
Put in another one. It just takes a long time to grow a really beautiful street tree.
Well, true, but some some of these trees have already been cut down. New people have moved in, and they're wondering, well, where's the tree? But they could actually call.
Yeah.
Which department would they call to?
Public Works.
Public Works.
Yeah, there is a street tree division.
And they would probably get a list of trees that you could do in that.
Yeah, I know for the sweet gums, we replaced it with a red oak. Now, red oaks take a while to grow, but it's actually turning in. It's been about, 9 years, 10 years now since they were cut down. And the little oak is starting to become a bigger oak, and it's starting to have a
Shading effect?
Shading is
Well,
maybe the strong term for it, but it's a
because
tree.
oaks generally grow up straight, and then at some point they start spreading.
Starting to spread. It's not quite to
It's
the
not that
full
point yet.
spread.
Okay.
It's getting there.
But so that's part of the stuff. It's interesting you bring up about the third bridge because you got people on both sides. But I personally, I think it's not going to happen because it's the wherewithal to do it just isn't there.
Yeah, you and I disagree.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean,
the wherewithal is a function of having a plan and a project that can be taken to all available funding resources. And I know that one of the strategies is don't let the plan be completed, don't let the people vote. And that would be, I think, a mistake. I think that the community, as the mayor, I deal with the entire community, not pockets. And I have found nothing but very broad support. And boy, I'll tell you, recently it has really blossomed again. I think as people have begun to figure out, we may not build that bridge. And it has repercussions that go far beyond just localized traffic on Wallace or traffic on Marion, which we've seen problems. When there are problems on the bridge, there are problems with that. But we have also a regional economy around us, including our own, that is really badly affected by the current situation that bottlenecks all traffic, east and west, from the coast toward Bend, really, has to all traffic through our downtown streets. Well, that is not good for our downtown. It results in a tremendous amount of unneeded commercial traffic. Other traffic has no business there. They're not downtown to be downtown. It's often not local traffic. So there's a whole range of issues to be dealt with, and I think we probably haven't had a good, solid conversation on it. We'll have more, I'm sure, on the issues around it.
Well, speaking of roads,
yeah,
there's the downtown plan, which I would imagine you'll want to talk about, but there's also Portland Road and State Street Corridor, which are going to be getting some attention here in the near future.
Yeah, several years ago, I created through the council the State Street Corridor study. It was as part of my ward. I thought it was time to look at that. It was I think State Street has become pretty seriously underdeveloped in terms of its commercial, pedestrian, and bicycle use. It really should be a better, more contained. We've got Willamette University nearby that has plans in that general area. There's a lot of kind of older commercial close in, sort of between 17th and 12th. And then there's some housing along sort of 17th to 25th. And there's quite a bit that could be done along that corridor. And that's in the process of being studied. We had a pretty good presentation on it last night to a large committee, work group that's been put together. There have been a lot of neighborhood, stakeholder, all kinds of people interested in that, and they've come up, I think, with some really interesting remaking of State Street as a traffic street for pedestrians, bicycles, and cars, as well as for mixed-use development for both commercial and housing, which I think for an entrance to the Capitol Mall is really badly needed. And I know my grandmother had a dress shop down there back in the 20s. And a lot of that kind of small retail is gone now. And there's a lot of interest in that area, and certainly there's a need for housing on a corridor that close to state employment.
Right.
So we're taking a real strong look at that. Portland Road, another entrance to the city that has, I think, been overlooked for years for its potential. We turned that into an urban renewal area, which allowed us to make a lot of strategic investments. The Kroc Center has located out there a really fantastic facility out off Bill Fry, which is one of the cross streets on Portland Road. The Career and Technical Education Center that Larry Tokarski donated to the school district. The school district is developing rapidly into a real model of career and technical education programs, which is training workforce. In fact, it is so good at training workforce. I've worked with the Urban Renewal Agency. We've made our first real serious investment in workforce development by investing city urban renewal funds in CTEC. I'm hoping we'll do it again. That is a really outstanding program. The whole Center 50 plus area, the south end of Portland Road, was all developed around that urban renewal area, and we're looking at food truck pods, a variety of different kinds of small business opportunities out there. We've done some work at the north end of it, and it's really starting to come together. We'll be doing some work on sidewalk and sort of the general beautification of that as an entrance area. And it's also an area where we have low income. We have a really ethnically diverse population out there that has a different kind of commercial need. We still need a grocery store. If anyone out there wants to build a grocery store, Portland Road will take it in a moment. We have 180 units of affordable housing going in on the old Epping property, that very large piece of acreage that sort of sits out there on the east side of Portland Road, kind of between CTEC and Bill Fry. And there's commercial interests out there now starting to take a look at it. We do still have some pretty solid employers out along the railroad spur that runs along it. And then there's some large acreages up along the Parkway and other areas that folks are starting to look at for development. This town is developing quite a bit, and we're having a great success in manufacturing, commercial, and housing. I mean, a lot of things are happening here in those areas.
I would think Portland Road, because of its access to I-5, would be
it's
very attractive to like commercial interest.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
That's our plan, and that's what our investment strategy is. And I think we're really, it feels like we're really headed in the right direction. I think we'll be having announcement about that property fairly regularly.
Well, Chuck, I want to thank you for coming in and talking about what's going on here in the city.
glad.
And it's something that I hope that you'll feel comfortable coming back and talking about things as they develop,
Absolutely.
as well as any kind of new projects that are going on.
Great.
And I really feel like we need better communication about what's happening in our city and the public. So I hope that you come back next time and watch City Beat. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.